What's going on, my friend? How you feel?
How you doing, my brother?
I'm chilling, bro. What's the word?
Long time listener, man. First time caller, man. You are speaking my kind of language right now. Left the legal field about 15 years ago, and I just got up into developing businesses and uh, property. One of my businesses that's very near and dear to me is a photography company that I own. We service schools, elementary, high schools, and some career colleges along the Gulf Coast. One of the biggest problems that we have, especially with HBCUs, is getting them to use black vendors. Can you believe out of all the HBCUs in the country, only 9 of them use a black photographer for commencement?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and what has happened is, for those people that don't know, many of the HBCUs and many of the even the PWIs do not own their own bookstores. It's either owned by Follett or Barnes and Noble. So
I didn't
what
know
they'll
that.
do in
That's interesting.
yeah, well, yeah, what they'll do is taking for instance Southern University. Southern University and also FAMU have some of the biggest graduating classes and A&T has some of the biggest graduating classes in the South. Okay. Barnes and Noble or Follett owns the bookstores, and they'll host what is called a grad fair. And when they hold these grad fairs, they get to invite who they choose to invite. Normally, it's Balfour, Herb Jones, Jostens, but none of them are black vendors. I've done the numbers, Anton. On an annual basis, on an annual basis, there's roughly about $3.8 million being generated in graduating funds, and none of that goes toward a black hand.
Do you think that when we say HBCUs, right? Because we know that there's a ton of HBCUs. Do you think that HBCUs are actually for black people, or do you think that HBCUs is just a name? Do you think it's just an institution that they frame as a name? Because I don't believe that any of them was founded by black people, and I don't think that any of them is actually doing anything that empowers black people any more than any other institution.
No, they're not. Delhi University was founded by black people.
Oh, okay.
So was Southern University. But now they're controlled by white dollar. Um, Deion Sanders put this into perspective when he was dealing with something with us. They were being sued by a production company. One of the biggest. You're from Detroit, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with Bayou Classic?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
It's run and controlled by a white woman by the name of Dottie Balletto
I didn't
that
know that.
owns NOCCI. Make a note of it. The name of the company is called NOCCI, and she just hired her first black person about 2 years ago. But she's in ultimate control of Bayou Classic. If she says Bayou Classic is not going to happen tomorrow, it's not.
Hmm.
I think the problem that we have in the black community, especially as it relates to business, is that we've become too individualized. It's us. They're not thinking about they're not thinking about black people as a whole. If that was the case, there would be no black people playing in some of these white universities. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing that um, black people weren't welcome there until they found a financial stake in what we had to in what we brought into their stadium, and it's a shame.
A piece of pushback that you would get, for example, though, would be that why would they continue to push dollars into any black people's hands or the black community specifically outside of just them naturally competing in capitalism when the majority of the dollars that's used to support the university themselves, especially the tax dollars that goes into these HBCUs, for example, come from all Americans and not just black people specifically.
That's a good perspective. But even when those dollars are divided, they're not divided properly. Look at the Maryland lawsuit. You just won a ton of money with the Maryland lawsuit. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but all the universities in Maryland sued Maryland because they funneled dollars into the University of Maryland that was allocated for HBCUs.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I'm not familiar with the lawsuit, but yeah,
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
yeah. I'm a proud graduate of Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland. But yeah, they manipulated that money, and once and this lawsuit went on for nearly a decade. And it just finalized recently, but nevertheless, my mentality has always been to spend my money within my neighborhood first. A lot of people don't share that same philosophy. But I have seen where money that I have sent out to the community, such as a barber or at a beauty salon or at a car lot, has come back to me in some way, shape, form, or fashion. White people not purposely spending money in my community. They'll spend money in the community if it benefits them, but
Yeah, but I
they're
mean,
not
at
going
the
to
same time, I'm
say,
not
well,
sure
look,
that
I'm going to go
black
ahead and
people
support.
spend money in the community, um, based off of the fact that they think that they would spend money in it unless it benefited them either. Like
But
I'll
that's
give you
that's
an
that's
example. I think that
right.
a lot of times people actually discount black businesses when they are black. They look to get the hookup. They're not looking to pay full price. They, do a lot of things that don't necessarily support that business itself. And I think that the way that we should probably look at it is forcing people to compete just based off of the standards of what capitalism means in the United States of America, instead of forcing them to compete based off of whether or not they black.
Well, and
Because
that's
I
fair.
don't
I,
I don't
I can.
believe that. I don't want nobody to come to me talking about hiring me because I'm black. I want them to come to me saying
Well, no,
hire me
no.
because I'm good. And if they just so happen to be black, then that's even better.
Well, in my line of work, in my line of work, um, well, with one of the companies I own, for example, um, we have three traditional black Catholic schools in New Orleans. We have St. Augustine, we have St. Mary's, and we have St. Catherine Drexel. In their history, let me see, I think the youngest one is probably St. Catherine Drexel. I think that was about 60 years old. In their history, they've had multiple Caucasian photographers. Okay. So we have our traditional white Catholic school, which is Brother Martin, um, Mount Carmel, and Jesuit. They've never had a black photographer. So I can't say that the playing field is fair. Whenever I
Well,
crack
why
open my
why
book,
haven't they though? I mean, why haven't they? Is it if I go out looking for a photographer, and I'm just gonna play devil's advocate for a minute, right? If I go out and look for a photographer, I'm gonna look for the best photographer, not necessarily the best black photographer, because I want the best pictures, right? If
right,
if the best
right,
photographer just so happens to, and he markets himself phenomenal, right? I got a black barber.
hmm
I know some great, like for my beard, I know some great white barbers. This guy just so happened to be
hmm
the top, right? And so I'm always gonna go with the guy that's the top instead of the guy that whatever. You know what I'm saying? I know some
right.
my
So
tailor for my
it,
for
it,
my suits and stuff. He just so happened to be a Chaldean guy, right? Because he's
okay,
been the
with that
best
with that
guy.
theory.
And I've been to a white tailor, I've been to a Jewish tailor, I've been to a black tailor. The Chaldean guy is the best guy ever, right? Why would I not go with
Okay,
the best
so
available
with
option
that
instead of
theory,
just going with black?
right? With that theory, let's take for example your barber. If your barber is white, right?
No, my barber is black.
You say your barber's white. Okay. Well, let's say for instance your barber is white, hypothetically, and your barber tells you that I can cut your hair just as good, or maybe even better than the person's cutting your hair now. Where the difference comes in is, are you willing to look at his work?
No.
You're not willing to look at his work, even if you said that I know that I'm better than uh, um than uh, uh
No,
than
in
the
that
person
instance,
you're
I
using right
wouldn't
now.
be because I believe in loyalty and rocking with the person that's been servicing you for the long, that's been
Gotcha.
holding you down. So that I couldn't use
So
that
in
example. If we talking about
so in essence,
contracting to build for a building or something like that, then obviously I'm gonna rock with whoever
yeah.
it is best that can do the job the best.
in essence, that's what we're facing when we go to the schools. When we're dealing with a school that's predominantly white or white run, our work doesn't get looked at. And we're talking about some of the best photographers in the game. I can't think of anybody that's better than Leslie Henderson, who was Masterpiece photographer, who's now one of the best school photographers in the South. They won't even look at his work. It's a running joke among our sector that it's a waste of time going to a school that is predominantly white because they won't hire a black photographer. However, the black school will hire a white photographer. That's the difference.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not discounting what you're saying. I'm just always wondering if it's something bigger than that, right? Did they go through the
Mhm.
process the way that they're supposed to go through it? Is you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, with private schools, as it relates to contract with private schools, they're not they don't have to do business with you unless they operate with the federal voucher system, where the government pays for some of the students to come there. If they're not utilizing that system, then they don't have to abide by any governmental contractual rules of acquisitions. But when you're dealing with universities that are public facilities, they have to abide by some type of process because they're public facilities. Some of them are getting around it by actually renting out space on the campus and just saying, hey, you can't tell me what to do with our business that I'm renting or with a building that I'm renting. So they get around it. But nevertheless, I don't want them to get rid of the photographers because they're white. I want them to make sure the process is fair to those people that these institutions were supposed to be built for.
I got you. I understand what you're saying.
So in essence, they're shutting out the very people that these institutions were built for, and I don't think it's fair.
I understand what you're saying. I got you.
So, but nevertheless, man, I enjoyed the conversation that time,
Thank you
and
for
I'm
coming
gonna
up on the
finish this one.
platform, Q. I appreciate you, big dog.
No problem, man.
All right,
Peace.
cool.